Okay, you guys ready to learn something about direction finding?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a brief history on direction finding and its significance in history. First off, the direction finding principles were discovered by a guy by the name of Heinrich Hertz back in 1889. And he was one of the three that was experimenting with early modes of radio. And he discovered that if he had a particular frequency on, that he could tell where that radio beam was coming from with a loop antenna similar to what Carol has here. Similar to what Carol has here. Okay? And one way it would be full scale, the other way it's nulled out. So that pretty much told you where the transmitter was. Okay? Now he's one of the guys that ripped off Tesla in the radio world, along with Marconi. Radio direction finding got its big start in about 1910, when the military realized they could use radio direction finding techniques to locate transmitters being used by the enemy. Okay? It got really going in World War II. Okay? Shortly after World War II, when they started putting up commercial radio stations, commercial radio beacons, that translated into commercial aircraft and commercial vessels. All started getting radio direction finding installations. If you look at some of the old photographs of Navy ships from World War II, what you'll see is you'll see an antenna similar to that, but it's got one big loop this way and one big loop this way. That's your direction finding antenna for a maritime installation. If you look at a picture of an old DC-3, DC-4, and underneath the fuselage you see a teardrop shaped appendage underneath the fuselage towards the nose. That houses a loop antenna for direction finding. Okay. World War II came along, and in World War II the British went crazy with radio direction finding, and they set up a lot of stations throughout the United Kingdom. And by the end of World War II, 25% of the German U-boats were sunk as a direct result of the British direction finding their locations. Now, the way they did it is the German Admiral Dönitz required every U-boat commander to send in a position and status report every 24 hours. And the British knew the frequency, and the Germans figured out that if we keep the transmission to less than a minute, we're good to go. They can't find us. They were wrong. The British were finding them in less than 30 seconds. So that counts for the success rate of sinking U-boats. In the other side of the world, the attack on Pearl Harbor. The Japanese pilots had a pretty good idea where they were going, but they weren't really sure. They know which direction to go. So what they did is they had a radio direction finder in the lead plane, and they tuned in a broadcast station in Honolulu and rode the beam to Pearl Harbor. So that's pretty significant in history. And my own personal experience with radio direction finding, indirectly of course, there was a big problem with illegal fishing in the 1970s. And we were not the only ones being affected by that. There were several countries in South America that were not happy with us because the tuna fleet was going down there and taking all the tuna out of South American waters. So what the National Fisheries Service came up with is they came up with a rule for all the tuna boats that they had to be on a certain frequency, 22 megahertz, at a certain time, and they had to talk to us out here at Point Reyes, and they were required to read over the air a one-page statement certifying that they were fishing outside territorial waters of any known country and were fishing legally, were using correct gear, blah, blah, blah. Well, it took them about 45 seconds to a minute to get through that statement. Well, while they were conversing with me out there at Point Reyes, the Navy direction finding station at Skaggs Island and the one in Hawaii were also listening, and they were getting a fix on these boats. And if the fix on the boat showed it close to the 200-mile limit, they would send a C-130 down there to actually see where they were. So that was indirectly my experience with it. In ham radio, well, a little bit further on, used to be where we, of us that were good at direction finding, be called out to locate emergency locating beacons on aircraft. 7 out of 10 of them turned out to be inadvertent. We'd find them parked at an airport somewhere and just needed to be turned off because of a malfunction. There were several cases that we did actually locate, mostly hams that worked with the Civil Air Patrol, locate ELTs by using direction finding techniques. But that has changed to where it's all satellite based now. So that part of it has pretty much gone away. So we do it for fun, with one exception that I'll tell you about. 1994, the Sacramento Police Department had a problem with their radio channels. They were still in the 450 range. A probation officer's car had been burglarized, and they got his duty bag, his gun, his badge, his ID, and they got a handheld radio with a charger that had all of SPD's frequencies, all of the Sheriff's Department frequencies, and all of CHP frequencies. Now, shortly after this was stolen, they started having a problem on their frequencies. Somebody was jamming them. Now, they weren't saying anything, it was just a carrier. Well, for 6 weeks when this happened, and when it happened, it would happen on a channel that was active with something like a pursuit or a robbery in progress, something like that. It always went to that channel. So they figured somebody was deliberately interfering with them. So for 6 weeks, all the dispatchers, when they heard it, they read off a statement over the air. Whoever's doing this, we're looking for you. The FCC is looking for you. Once we catch you, you're subject to a 1-year jail term and $15,000 fine. Okay, that didn't work. The city guys were looking for it also. They couldn't find it. So they called the hams together. And we went out there looking for it. The first night, we were out all over the city with spectrum analyzers and Yankee antennas, waiting. Didn't hear a peep. Night number 2, yep, it's on there. And it's on there real strong. So we started tracking it. And we tracked it from the downtown area. We tracked it out Business 80, tracked it out to Watt Avenue, and the signal quit. About half an hour later, it comes back on, and now it's back on Business 80, headed downtown. It's going into the Land Park area. We know it's in the Land Park area. We've got a pretty good location on it, and it quits. So everybody moved in. We're within a 6 square block area, and it comes on again. We got into within a 2 square block area, and it quits. Well, SPD came in, they sealed off those 2 square blocks, and they were going to go door to door, pounding on doors looking for whoever had this radio. Well, I'm standing there with my spectrum analyzer, and I've got my Yankee, and I just happen to be pointing in the correct direction, and here comes an SPD patrol car. And the signal is getting stronger and stronger, and as he passes me, the signal goes to 0. And I turn around, I point my Yankee at that patrol car, and it's full scale again, and I tell the sergeant standing there, stop that car. So he stopped the car. I said, I want to check out the radios. Went over there, looked in the door. Well, as soon as it stopped and the officer got out of the car, the signal stopped. Looked in the car radio was on a different channel than the one being jammed. And I said, let me see your handheld. He pulls out his handheld, it's on the correct channel that's being jammed. And I'm playing with it, and I squeeze the case, and it starts transmitting. Release the case, it stops. Squeeze it, transmit, release, it stops. What had happened was Motorola had serviced that radio about the same time that probation officer's car was stolen, and they pinched a wire inside the case when they put it back together. Now, what made it very difficult was, back in those days, you did not have an assigned handheld like we do now. You came in after your watch, you turned it off, stuck it in the charger, and the next shift coming on, they were looking for a green light. There's one, good to go, off they go. So that thing was going all over the city, and they had no idea who had it. So that's when I wrote a story for World Radio, and I titled it, When the Fox is Black and White. So that was a feather in our cap. Well, since then I've gotten into direction finding, and it's just a ton of fun. One deal that we did down in Concord. Remember when Pacificon used to be at the airport in Concord? We went down there, and my buddy Dale from down in San Jose and I met there, and we're going to do the fox hunt. Well, they had a beginner's fox hunt, which was pretty simple. But then they had the advanced fox hunt, and that was a bear because it was moving. So we're in there with our handhelds and our Yankees, and we're tracking this thing, and we get to the first floor. No, it's not here. We go up to the second floor. Nope, it's not here. Go up to the third floor. Oh, it's getting stronger. And then it disappears. Go back down the second floor. There it is. Disappears. Go down the first floor. Disappeared again. Go back up. Yep, it's back up on the third floor. So we're in a hurry. We're going down the hallway. We're headed towards the east end of the hallway, and it's getting stronger. We know it's here. We know it's down here. We get about 10 feet from the end of the hallway. One of the room doors opens. Little girl comes out. She starts walking down the hall and walks right by us. The signal quits. Turn around. It's full scale. Hold on, young lady. And she looks at us. She giggles a little bit. And I said, "Are you the fox?" And she goes, "No." She was carrying a teddy bear, and they had hidden the transmitter inside the teddy bear. So that made it a lot of fun. Now, what's it take to get into fox hunting? Got a handheld? You're good to go. That's all you need. However, there are certain techniques that you can use when you're looking for a fox. If you know the frequency, then you dial it on your handheld, and without any other apparatus, you can still find the fox. Because all you have to do is you listen for it, and you hear it out there, and use your body as a shield. If you can still hear it, it's out there somewhere. It's not behind you. And as you start moving in closer, and it starts getting stronger, and you're covering up your antenna, and you still hear it, well, you know it's out here somewhere. Okay? And once you think you're pretty close, what you do is you take your antenna off. You unscrew your antenna, same thing. If you can take your antenna off and you can shield it with your hand and still hear it, you're within 10 feet of it. It's there. You just got to find it. And one of the things I do when we put on our fox hunts is I try to change it up quite a bit. One of the fox hunts that we did, I had the fox out at Sunrise and Light Rail, just south of Light Rail. Over on the right hand side there's a closed Staples store. I was looking for some place to hide the fox, and I looked at the big water main that comes up with the green cover on there, and I looked at that and I said, nah, that's not good enough. And then I happened to notice there was a flagpole. There's 3 flagpoles, and they still have the rope attached. So I whipped out a zip tie and I zipped the fox to the rope, and I ran it 35 feet up in the air. And I was sitting across the street, and it was hilarious to watch the guys trying to find the fox, and they're looking underneath that cover, and they're looking all over, and they cannot find it, and they know it is right there. And it took about 15 minutes before somebody... Okay, well, in the meantime, I took another one, and I went over to the Sears appliance store over at Folsom and Zinfandel. I walked inside and I said, hey, you guys want to have some fun? And they said, yeah, we're kind of bored. I said, okay, I'm going to put this little transmitter here in the store, and you guys are going to have fun watching people come in and try to find it. Okay, I stuck it inside a freezer. And it took some very experienced fox hunters over an hour to find it. So yeah, I like to mix it up, make it a little bit difficult for people to find. The other technique that you can use is, do I recognize what these are?
Toilet paper rolls.
Toilet paper rolls, paper towel holes, rolls. If you have a long antenna, you would use a paper towel roll. Stick it over your antenna, and now it's directional. You're not going to hear the signal, you're going to hear it a little bit, but if you do this and you get the signal full scale on your S scale, it's that way. It's not going to be that way or that way, it's going to be right that way. Okay, it's one technique you can use. This is cheap, very cheap, costs you less than a nickel to make one of these. The other thing you can use, this is my favorite toy. This is a 2-meter Yagi. It's available from arrowantenna.com. And I also purchased the attenuator box that goes with it, and I can dial in 75 dB of attenuation. So when I'm out there looking for the fox, and I hear it, and it's about this pattern, hearing it about like here, I just start clicking in attenuation. And by the time I get to 75 dB, it's going to be looking right in your right eyeball, is where the signal's going to be. Okay? Now, to verify that it's in his right eyeball, I can go horizontal. And that will give me a better feel on where it is. That's for normal. That's for nailing it down pretty good. Now, that is anticipating that whoever hit the fox has the antenna vertical. If it's horizontal, that changes things up a little bit. If it's encased in a metal casing, such as a trash can, that changes it up a little bit much too. So it's a lot of fun to go find one. How many of you brought your handhelds? There are 2 foxes out in the parking lot right now. Write down the frequencies here. .525 is fox number 1. 147.540 is fox number 2. 147.540 is fox number 2. Now, I will tell you that fox number 1 has a pretty good antenna on it. Fox number 2 has a dummy load, or one of those little stubby ones that you can get. That's pretty much a dummy load, which makes it a little bit more difficult to find. Any questions so far? Yes?
Would you say the first frequency was?
The first frequency is
147.525.
yes. 147.525. It's identifying as Fox 1. And the other one is 147.540. It's identifying as Fox 2. Those of you that are high-speed Morse operators shouldn't have any problem identifying. Okay, so you guys kind of want to go find a fox?
Yeah.
All right, let's go find it. Go get them.